lot of the discussion out within AI is ensuring that you have the right policy and the right approach and the right training for people. And yet we also still want to be a curious organization. We also want to see what's new, see where we can go with things, because we don't want to leave our industry the way it is. We want to see it advance and make improvements. I think you can only do that through leadership, providing shared goals, shared mission, but then really good context around the way that we can get there that makes our customers successful. So I don't know if any of that's necessarily changed, or just maybe the speed of how that's communicated and how that gets adapted is what is accelerated, because there's new capabilities moving at a speed that maybe we haven't seen before.
Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Sam Chappell and this is Not a Threat. This show explores how to prepare for an AI-first future. Through conversations with leaders at the forefront of AI, we examine how organizations and individuals can harness its potential and thrive in an AI-first world. You can find notes from this discussion, along with other episodes, frameworks, and more at notathreat.ai. My guest today is Kenon Chen. Kenon leads strategy and growth at Clear Capital, a real estate analytics, data solutions, and valuation technology company. With a background in tech, he's grown to love the housing and real estate space, bringing an innovative outlook to product development and organizational growth. In our conversation, we delve into how Kenon translates technical language across the diverse spheres of product, sales, and marketing. We also explore the role of AI in talent development, effective deployment strategies to mitigate bias, and the skills required to lead in an AI-powered organization. This was a thoughtful and wide-ranging discussion, and a real pleasure to sit down with someone so grounded in both vision and execution. So, please enjoy my conversation with Kenon Chen. Clear Capital's mission is to build confidence in real estate decisions. Could you explain how the company achieves that?
Absolutely. The other part of that mission statement, after build confidence in real estate decisions, is to strengthen communities and improve lives. And so it gets to the why do we want to build confidence in real estate decisions? And the way we look at it is a home for most Americans is the largest investment and contributor to their net worth of anything that they purchase or own or invest in. And so providing clarity as to what's happening with that property, what's its value for all parties involved, and especially companies that are making a financial decision, whether to approve a loan or not, whether to invest in that property, to support the real estate transaction itself. We see our mission is vital, right? If we provide accurate data, we provide transparent understanding of what's happening with that property, we can participate in that mission of strengthening communities, improving lives, because we've led to the accuracy of decisions around the properties. The way we do that is, number one, is ensuring that we have local market expertise in every state, all 50 states and the territories, so that we have both boots on the ground understanding of properties, as well as data, analytics, and technology that streamlines and modernizes and makes the valuation process and the understanding of properties more accurate. That's how we view it.
You joined the company back when it was still a startup. You were there for things like the 2008 crash, pandemic. What did you learn from those moments, and what guiding principles have served the company through that time?
Yeah, when I joined the company, I was really a technologist, right? I really wasn't at all an expert in housing, finance, or real estate. I met the co-founders back in the late 90s, like right in the beginning of the dot-com boom. One of the co-founders I worked with at a previous startup, doing web development, and met our now CEO and co-founder through a random golf game that I play. I don't even play golf that often, and it just happened that way. But as they came up with where they wanted to go with the company and gave me a call, my approach first was like, I can help with the technology platform. I can help with the data, where things are going from that standpoint. It really wasn't until, honestly, a little bit later that I fell in love with housing and with the idea of, wait a minute, this is not just about technology that generates more advertising clicks or provides new ways to get coupons for shopping. Not that any of that's bad or anything. It's just that this has a much deeper potential impact, I think, on people's lives and like product people shouldn't do. I fell in love with the problem and with the product and have moved right from being a technologist to over time really embracing the need for good product solutions and to be a part of the larger ecosystem of making housing more streamlined, affordable, attainable.
You have an interesting role sitting at the crossroads of product, sales, marketing. How do you translate the technical language for others within the company to get them on the same boat as you when it comes to product thinking?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this lately around translation, right? And everyone within their own expertise speaks their own language in a way, right? And engineers speak their own language on the technology side, product people speak their language, business people and front end people have their language. And that's why we have typically like tons of analysts running around that act as translators between different groups. And I've been thinking about how AI might change that. How if you could just speak in your native language, for lack of a better way to say this, but if you could just speak in your native language and then have AI do the translation directly to whatever the new native languages it needs to execute, right, within that environment, what would that do, right? How would that help to reduce some of the gaps that are between? But anyway, the way I think of it is like context, because I'm out and about in the industry and in front of a lot of the different stakeholders in the housing system. I'm always trying to bring that context back into the organization and then enable the experts within each discipline to do what they do best, but just with that context, and then try to provide threads, if you will, that can go across all the different disciplines so that we're on the same page with goals.
What role do you think AI can play in developing talent within an organization?
I think it can play a vital role when it comes to helping someone quickly get a foundational understanding, perhaps of new skills, new topics, and things. Because this idea of like self paced research, when you're really looking into a topic for the first time, there is that barrier with doing a typical Google like search where you have just independent search results, is knowing where to start. It lends itself to clicking in and diving down really deep first before you go wide and get a summary and get an overall view of something. And I think AI really helps with that, right? Where you can get your high level summary first, figure out what are maybe some of the main points, and then dive deep. Everyone learns a little bit differently, but I've found it helpful to get a lay of the land very quickly and then come up with a plan of action for learning. And so I think that it also removes some of the initial stigma, if you will, around asking a silly question. You can ask dumb questions all day within a chat and no one judges your questions, which means you're now actually open to learn without that stigma. So I do think it's going to advance things quickly there. The downside is that you could go down a path, potentially an incorrect path, and a path that's not really validated without that expert putting you on solid footing. So I think it does have the risk of missing out on the fundamentals. And then you have to redo that once you talk to someone who's actually been there, done, and has that expertise.
How do you think about those guardrails with AI, either when it comes to education or even within your own product? I'm sure you're using AI at Clear Capital. How do you think about effectively deploying it?
We think about AI in two different buckets right now. One is the way that we utilize AI within our products themselves, right? So as a way to innovate, as a way to improve the outcome of our solutions. We started using certainly machine learning and computer vision a while ago, back in 2017, because we saw really what it could do for things like automated valuation models, helping to understand a property's value instantly and making that prediction of value, that there were so many different efficiencies built into using machine learning versus the traditional statistical models. And same thing with what we're always trying to grapple with, things like how do you bring a home, a physical place, to someone's desk rather than always having to send someone out to look at a home? How do you bring that in a virtual way to someone? AI has been a really strong tool to help to translate from the analog world into the digital world with some accuracy and fidelity so that better decisions can be made either by another model or by a human. So that's one way. There's this AI presents a lot of different possibilities directly help our products. And then there's the people part, right? How does AI help the way that we work as people? And yeah, we think very carefully about the way that we put policies into place. And that's still evolving, right? That's the wild thing about this is that what's available now from an AI tool, AI agent, all of that is going to be completely different from what's available next year. I think we're all wrestling with how to continually adopt new policies and make changes as AI capabilities and tools become available too.
Just to dive deeper a little bit there, you talked about automated valuation models
Mm.
that your systems are producing. I know there's an issue that Clear Capital has talked about in the past around bias in property valuations. What are you doing to ensure that you don't get any of those unintended consequences? How do you validate and verify those valuations that the machine is producing?
Zero testing is a very important part of any model development. The first of all, data governance, the data going into the model, obviously the modeling itself, but what comes out needs to go through the rigor of testing built into the process. And we've done a lot to really ensure that we are letting our customers know and the users of the model what our confidence is in the predicted result so that they have a gauge in which they know that we are giving them the tools to say how confident we are in it, and they can build their risk models around it. And for things like automated valuation models, we're predicting the market value of a property. And our confidence models are helping people understand how likely is it that the value that we have is within a certain percentage of the benchmark value, which is the sale value of the property, the appraised value of the property. I think that with AI, right, and any AI based modeling, they're not going to be 100% accurate with computer vision. It keeps getting better and better, but there's going to be a certain amount of it that you really need to have visibility into how accurate the prediction is so that you can actually build business process around it. So we've been leading things like standards, and we're very involved in industry standards so that we can all speak the common language of how confident a model is, and we can give our clients and users of that model the right tools to build their own risk-based policies around the usage of it.
Are your customers asking for that explainability as well? Do they want to know how you arrived at this valuation, presumably? And have you seen any regulation that's on the horizon? Are you seeing it from government?
We're seeing it both, really. There was a rule that was finalized last year by the sort of joint housing agencies, specifically around AVMs, and I think that has been paused in terms of being put into effect this year. But customers still want to know, I think, a lot of what was in that rule, which is how do you understand what your confidence is from that model? What's your testing process for understanding the accuracy of that model? How do you manage the quality of the data? These are all things that I think are pretty common for people to want to know so that not only they can be compliant with whatever regulations that they have to adhere to, but also so they can just make good business decisions. And again, like going back to our mission again, our mission is to build confidence, right? And so this very much falls perfectly in line with, which is if we can clearly communicate our model's confidence in any particular prediction, then we're helping to achieve that for our clients.
Could you dive a bit deeper on some of the more recent AI deployments you're looking at internally? I'm interested not necessarily in the specifics, but more how you think about identifying projects, assessing their effectiveness, what to move forward with, or what lessons have you been able to apply from the things you learned back in 2017 when you started using machine learning models, when you think maybe more about the generative AI stuff that's really blown up in the last couple of years?
I'll speak for how I think of it first individually when I think about generative AI and those possibilities versus what we've been doing with machine learning and computer vision and more of the deep learning approach is that, especially in the world of housing finance, language and communication of context is a very large part of what happens in any transaction. Speaking from the property valuation side of things, yes, you're often providing a number on a property and what its value is, but to trust that number, to have confidence in that number, communication around the context of how did you arrive at that number and what data supports that and what was observed at the property that positively or negatively impacts that number. This idea of building a credible opinion of value is very much baked into the way that the valuation industry works. So what I love about generative AI is that it's really focused on language itself, right? It's focused on generating content that can be used to quickly summarize into natural language form a lot of data as input and then summarize it succinctly in a way that's human readable, or the ability to also engage with a lot of data in a human language format through prompts and be able to get analysis from them. Generative AI opens up this idea of, oh wait, we can do more than just the quantitative, numerical based predictive models, but we could also provide context and allow humans to interact with it in a language based way. There's a lot of great ways that we think generative AI can be used to provide context to and human interaction type tools for all of that great rich property data and analytics and all those things that we're providing. So we definitely think about it that way. I think the other ways, and you see this with a lot of the different companies that are building generative AI models to really help translate what investors and policymakers are asking for in order to underwrite loans that meet their guidelines. There's just pages and pages of documentation. That is what this investor wants or what this one wants. And then these regulations. And there's just a lot for anyone to really learn and remember. And so there's this goal. What if you could automate all that? What if you could put all of those pages and pages of text in something that's really can be queried, ask questions of, come back with specific responses, and maybe even automate from there. There's a lot of things we're looking at for how to help our employees get a wide understanding of what might be required of any particular, assignment and be more efficient from there.
So, as you think about your employees, what skills have you spotted as being essential to working well with AI?
I think curiosity is actually an important skill. It always has been, right? But in terms of someone really seeking to understand the why, but I think curious people ask better questions. And when you translate that to prompt engineering, right, and the idea of asking, like, what's a better prompt? What's the right prompt that gets you to your answer the fastest? Or is it possible to use this tool in this context to solve this problem? Curiosity, yeah, is one of those traits that I think we've always known about, but I think you see it. People taking immediate action and immediate embrace of learning AI tools when they're curious.
Do you think it's possible to nurture that skill? Or do you think you're just born with it and anyone who's not curious is going to fall behind?
Oh, well, I don't want to cut anyone short from their who they could be. But yeah, I think curiosity can be nurtured. It certainly can be encouraged, right? I think the culture at the company can really help bring out that in people, and it also attracts people to yourself. I remember I heard a leader at a talk about how sometimes we spend so much time focused on trying to go out and find people that we think would be a good fit to our company and the recruiting process and everything, just always seeking out like, we know what's best, so we're going to go try to find them. And he said, what if you flipped that around and said, if you sent out a really strong signal of who you are and what it is you're trying to do, and you have a mission that's worth going after, actually, like the people that align with that and want to be a part of that come find you. So I was like, are you sending out a strong enough signal? And yeah, I'm very proud of the culture that we have because it's now self-replicating. I find that people come to us because they see who we are, and that it gives us an edge to find the people that end up being the curious people and the people that want to solve problems and aren't afraid of it. And then hopefully we continue to manage the culture in a way that frees people up, right, to be rewarded for being curious as opposed to feeling nervous about painting outside the lines.
What does good leadership look like in an AI powered organization?
In some ways, it doesn't change at all with AI, meaning it's still so important to have shared goals and shared mission, and for people to understand the context in which they're working. And that includes risk versus reward type, understanding as well. It helps you understand the inherent risk in using certain tools and approaches. Even when we talk about data privacy, we talk about what type of AI tools is it okay to utilize that gives us benefit, but also protects our confidential information, protects our customers' data, right? That's a lot of the discussion now within AI is ensuring that you have the right policy and the right approach and the right training for people. And yet we also still want to be a curious organization. Like I said, we also want to see what's new, see where we can go with things, because we don't want to leave our industry the way it is. We don't want to leave it status quo. We want to see it advance and make improvements. I think you can only do that by through leadership, providing shared goals, shared mission, but then really good context around the way that we can get there that makes our customers successful. So I don't know if any of that's necessarily changed, or just maybe the speed of how that's communicated and how that gets adapted is what is accelerated because there's new capabilities moving at a speed that maybe we haven't seen before.
You mentioned there the future of the industry, I guess. Where do you see your sector in the next 5 years? 5 years is a couple of decades, the way things are moving now. But where would you like to see it, is maybe a better question.
Yeah, for valuation, the world of property data and analytics and valuation specifically, I'd like to see us continue to march down this path of digitization and moving things more quickly out of the analog world into the digital world so that we have better data earlier, as opposed to the way it's been in the past, which is get the data into a document and then a document moves throughout the process instead of always having first generation native data that was collected at the source, right? We want better source data. I think AI can help us, first of all, get things from the analog world to the digital world faster. And I hate using the word democratize. I can't think of a better word right now, but put that capability into more people's hands so that regardless of who's holding the technology or who's involved in that, you're still getting a certain minimum threshold of quality and fidelity on that data. We acquired a company called Kubicasa a few years ago that is the mobile app that lets anyone with a phone scan a home in 5 minutes, and it produces an accurate floor plan, understanding of gross living area, dimensions. It's used primarily to really help drive a better listing experience, better shopping experience for consumers because they can actually see a floor plan on the home and all of that. But it also changes the dynamic in my mind of providing, again, a better translation of that analog property into digital earlier in the process so that everyone downstream can benefit from an accurate floor plan on the property. And that's all possible now by AI. And I'd like to see more of that move to say, why would we wait until the end of the process to finally get this converted to a digital data format where we're, often in the mortgage process, we're extracting data from documents like way later on. Let's just start with the source data and then bring that with us all the way through so we can automate more and have more accuracy, right? Like instead of a translation layer, again, removing translation layers and going back to the source. So yeah, that's what I want to see. I mean, I realize we're participating in a much larger ecosystem of housing finance. And what do I want for housing finance? At some point, all of this technology and AI and great stuff has to translate for it to be really worthwhile. It has to translate to a lower cost of getting a mortgage for like regular home buyers. The benefits of efficiency, the benefits of better data, hopefully translate into less cost for borrowers. So we have to keep that focus in mind too.
You mentioned the acquisition of Kubicasa. How do you think about acquiring versus building, particularly now with the advent of things like AI coding tools? You're a technologist. Do you think you'll be building the next app? Or do you think someone in the team today who isn't a technical person could build things.
No one lets me touch the code anymore directly. And so maybe AI will let me actually, yeah, create apps again myself. But no, all kidding aside, I think you can see a potential future, right? Where business people could take an app to the point where you could start to look at, yeah, you can make it production ready from there, but most of the hard work has been done of translating from the initial requirements of what's in someone's head to a usable app. We're not there yet, right? It's amazing how far we've come, even in the past couple of years. Some of the apps now really are generating okay code, I'll call it. Still not ready for production, but code that lets you maybe work with it, right? In the short term, no, I don't see that having major changes to it. But where I do see this opportunity is perhaps, well, one of the things that engineers hate to do is they hate to like have to take over someone else's code that they didn't write. And maybe at some point it removes that sort of friction because with AI, maybe we can, auto comment and auto summarize everything that's already been there to where you feel like when you pick it up, you're not having to read someone else's mind, that you can actually just start from there and keep building. And there's a lot more efficiency built into that process of getting up to speed. But yeah, from a product standpoint and development, I really think the first thing is just trying to reduce that translation layer again between the business people and the product people. And I have so many analysts in between the different groups.
What about your job? How do you see that changing in the next couple of years? Probably already changed quite a bit in the last, let's say, 5 years. There's quite a lot's gone on. But how do you see things going in the future? Do you think your role's going to look like?
Yeah, I think that my role is strategy and growth. So I look ahead from how do we get to our goals over the next 3 to 5 years. And then I have product, all things go to market is where my focus is. And I think that the way my role will change is then needing to be up to speed and understanding, first of all, different ways to work, as you were asking before. With AI, are the things that we should be changing in our process, changing the way that we work together and collaborate across teams that would be more efficient and more effective with the new set of tools that's evolving much faster now than before. Not just about having Jira anymore and doing sprints and following a certain process. There's so many different ways to approach it now with so many different capabilities. One is just, understanding where things are going and being willing to rethink process. I think the other is just honestly from a competitive space is like learning how to not worry too much about the hype, right? Like actually staying focused on solving customer pain points, staying focused on the things that create real value as opposed to needing to raise your hand and say, we have that too, right? I think there's more and more pressure, if you will, to claim that you have certain technologies or capabilities, whatever, to feel relevant, but we can't lose touch with the fundamentals, which is you still have to solve customer problems in a way that is continually getting better, or being more and more effective at solving problems. And there's no replacement, regardless of what tools or technologies that you're using. So I think it'll become harder and harder to stay focused on the problem when you have so many things that distract you and experiment with.
As we're nearing the end here, I thought I'd like to close with a traditional closing question that I've now asked 2 or 3 times. What's the story that you'd like others to tell about you?
I'm always terrified to think about other people talking about me, but I'd love it if people just felt like I added value to the conversation. If people see the benefit of having me in the room, because I help things along or help add value to the conversation, I think that would be a good goal. And then the biggest compliment I think that anyone could pay is that I didn't just see people as the means to an end, but actually cared about the people that are in the room, right? I've tried to say this often over the past few years, which is this idea of, in whatever we do, like people first, right? So if we're engaging in AI and technology, that's great, but it has to be putting the impact on people first. And one of the goals that I've had this year, because I go to a number of different conferences and events and travel, and I've really been challenging myself this year to not go through the motions, but take a stop and actually engage with people in just a purely relational way, regardless of the outcome, regardless of where that goes from there. And yeah, it's not up to me how people see me. If I have this goal of adding value to the conversation and treating people like they matter in any room that I'm in, the rest will work.
It's a good way to think, because human interaction is going to become more and more valuable when everything's AI. But I can also say you've certainly added value to this room. So thank you very much for that. And Kenon, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
If you enjoyed this episode, check out notathreat.ai. There you'll find every episode of this podcast complete with show notes and resources to keep learning. You can also sign up for the Not a Threat newsletter, where we condense episodes into the big ideas and share practical tools, frameworks, and insights to help you prepare for an AI-first future.